What's up, Mac Nostalgia? Dave here with a review of Squid Game Season 3, the final season for the absolute global smash hit Netflix series. And this is, of course, coming on the heels of Season 2, which just released about 6 months ago on December 26th of 2024. And I'm getting to this a little bit late, of course. A lot of TV has come out recently in binge drop format, Squid Game and The Bear, 2 days apart. So it took me a little bit to get to Squid Game, but I'm very happy to dive into Season 3. And yeah, I mean, I think at this point, when you're picking up this season, the context remains very similar to how we were going into Season 2 because Season 2 was a massive hit once again. Season 2 of Squid Game really only compares to the first season of Squid Game and Wednesday in terms of like total viewership, most views in a month, most views in a week, all the various metrics that we have now from Nielsen and Netflix themselves. Squid Game 2 was, by all accounts, a massive smash. And I think that's despite the fact that it was a bit of a different season than Season 1, right? I think Season 1, of course, very clearly told a complete story, and I was paced very well as a result and very effective at its larger themes, what made the show entertaining, all the appeals of the show. Season 2, though, had a bit of a different flow to it, especially when you compare it to Season 3. It's very clear that Squid Game Season 3 is more of a Season 2B or a Season 2.5, and Squid Game Seasons 2 and 3, frankly, could have and probably should have been combined into one season. That season would have had, I think, a lot more of a tighter storytelling to it. To me, Season 3 ran out of juice just a little bit because you kind of knew where it was going to go, the only way it could go as it progressed through the various plot. And, watching the various Squid Games as you see them, still very appealing and very dramatic for the show. But there's some outlandish twists in Season 3 that you have to really buy into to let Season 3 take you to the end. And, when you reflect back on Season 2, of course, it has all this buildup and momentum in terms of, for setting things back up, getting us back into the game, kind of raising the stakes with Gi-hun intentionally, willingly joining the game once again, while you have these outside forces trying to take down the group and find the island and all of that, right? And it builds to this rebellion that, of course, is doomed from the start because the front man, played by Byung-hun, is obviously the bad guy the entire time. I think the stakes of that really work. Of course, it's very violent, so I'm not making the show even more violent. But then when we remove ourselves from Season 2 and pick back up with Season 3, it's like, all right, now we're going to continue the games because your nasty rebellion against the rules failed. And that's fine. I was happy to do that because I think watching the games unfold and the craziness you see the characters get put through as part of the appeal of the series, it did feel like a big downshift, though, after the events of the Season 2 finale. So, that's to say, I think also with Season 3, I don't know if you have as much of a connection to the characters that survive in Season 3 versus the people that you may have met in Season 2 or left us in Season 2. I think in general, too, between Season 2 and 3, you were more connected to other characters in Season 1, which again just speaks to, how that first season was conceived, which of course was in a manner not expecting to have sequels. So, Season 3, I think, unfortunately, so much appears to ride on the introduction of Jung-jae's baby, Yuri, in real life. Her character having birth in the games during the game, add that with one of the fastest pregnancy labors known to man, one of the fastest live births, just a matter of minutes, which I know has technically happened in reality here, but it's something you have to just accept, that there's going to be a successful birth that takes like 5 minutes of real time. And then that baby, they decide to make a player to increase the stakes. And then I think by that point, once I realized that Gi-hun was going to, save the baby at all costs, the way the show ended was incredibly obvious at that point. I think you knew his fate. You knew the fate of the baby. I think that much was clear. So does that, dull the effectiveness of Season 3? I think a little bit. But again, I think more than anything, my criticism of Season 3 would just be that it just felt a bit more inert than season 2, which had so much build up and payoff. And I would say season 3 is the weakest of the 3 seasons. But as far as the show wrapping up overall, I think it's solid enough for where it goes and what it teases in the future. We'll get to that in a bit. I think that, of course, is very tantalizing. But yeah, I think season 3, I was happy to watch it, of course. But, I think the show and this specific story within the show perhaps ran out of gas a little bit. In terms of the new games, I think the jump rope game was great. And, you really add to the stakes of that with Junhee's injury from the previous game. And I think her death is very effective. The hide and seek game before that, which I believe is these are games 4 and 5, I think, or 3, 4, and 5, whatever it is. The hide and seek game also, I think, worked pretty well. And I think you get the most out of the side characters, I think, during these moments when they're fighting for their lives, or whether they're running away or becoming the dastardly killer that's inside them, whatever it might be. That's where you get the most out of the side characters. I think like the old man kind of tertiary antagonist of seasons 2 and 3. His character, I think, worked pretty well. Is he as compelling as some of the antagonists on season 1? No, he's not. Again, this is a familiar theme we have here. You get the Hoyeon cameo towards the end of season 3. Wasn't expecting that. I think everything with Soldier 11, the North Korean defector who rebels against the game that she's serving. I think her stuff was I don't think you really attached to her as a character, despite having a pretty sizable introduction to her in the beginning of season 2. I don't know if her stuff necessarily really worked. It was just kind of side plot to me. I didn't have a big connection to her character, unfortunately, especially when she decides to try and rescue a player who you don't have much of a connection to beforehand. Like, it doesn't totally land for me, player 246 specifically. I think the drug subplot also kind of ran out of juice, with Minsu kind of taking the place of Top's underling. That stuff was fine in season 2. I actually enjoyed Top's kind of flamboyant performance. Of course, that's Top of Big Bang fame, but it kind of played out the string once Top is gone at the end of season 2. And then you have his underling and Minsu. They're just not. I don't know. It was just kind of repetitive after a while. Yeah, I think the ending game as well, with the various platforms and the deciding who to save and who to kill to advance. I like that. I think that was again, kind of speaks to the ethos of what Squid Game kind of is about, and which I think kind of ties into where it leaves us, of course, which is Gi-hun has died, and what we learn when the front man goes to visit his estranged daughter in Los Angeles and give her some of his effects. Who does he see? But he sees another recruiter, got like Yan Yu's character playing the game with the flipping the squares for the name. And who is that recruiter? None other than noted non-Korean person Cate Blanchett. And of course, she's playing that with a American man in LA. And that, of course, leaves the open-endedness of what is the future of the Squid Game franchise, right? Of course, there's been the spin-off from Mr. Beast. There's been the official reality show competition on Netflix that was very controversial and polarizing in real life. I don't think that's ever coming back. But Squid Game Season 2 is a massive hit. Season 3 will be a massive hit as well. And this is, of course, notably a global hit for Netflix. The creator of Squid Game, Hwang Dong-hyuk, he has at least publicly said that, he doesn't know what the future is in terms of Netflix's plans, but this is like the end of this story that he created. And, the leaving this open for the future of Squid Game, I think kind of brings up a kind of common thing we continue to see, which is, Korean media being brought to, the Western media market, and then a lot of times being remade and repurposed for an American audience all over again. Think of the announced Parasite, spin-off series that didn't really get off the ground. Of course, that was going to be English. You have the Spike Lee Oldboy remake of the Park Chan-wook classic. And now you have the prospect of Squid Game continuing in a story set in America. And I think the thing with this that's interesting is you can kind of see both sides of this, right? Because Squid Game, especially its first season, a very inherently Korean story, of course, from a Korean creator, Korean talent, the dialogue is Korean, all of that, right? It also is specifically thematically Korean in terms of how it's talking about and commenting on Korean society and how people find themselves within it and that kind of pessimistic worldview. And that general societal comment that the first season does so expertly is why the show has been so celebrated. And it's kind of cherry on top of its kind of pulpy popularity is that it's a show with, I think, actually kind of a lot to say in terms of exposing the worst in people and the selfishness that you can find. And that is something that is also quite translatable to capitalistic America. So I think it would work well, but I also have reservation about taking the Korean thing and then making it into an American thing, right? So I hope, at minimum, that Hwan Dong-hyuk, even if he doesn't want to be involved creatively, I don't think he does. He never intended for Squid Game to be his life's work. I hope he gets to be an executive producer on that show. He'll probably have a created by credit anyway, so he'll get paid for that, which is nice. So we'll see what happens. There's been rumors that maybe David Fincher would be involved in the future of Squid Game, and that, of course, coming alongside some talk from Holt McElhaney that maybe Mindhunter would return with movies at Netflix from Fincher, which would be spectacular. I'd root for that. Fincher, obviously such a specific type of creator and thinker and director, would be someone who would handle Squid Game with a lot of care and in a meaningful way. So if that does happen, that would be pretty appealing, even if I think a lot of us film fans would like Fincher to leave Netflix and return to the cinema, but that's neither here nor there. So we'll see. I'm just very curious about like where it's gonna go. But there's going to be more. I can't see how there's not going to be more, given that this is the biggest or second biggest brand Netflix has made alongside Stranger Things. That's not even debatable. That's where we are. Throw Bridgerton in there, I guess. But like this is huge. They're gonna find a way to keep it going. And you gotta figure if they ever do eventually make a Netflix style Disney World, Squid Game's gonna be part of it. Yeah. So let me know what you think about the future of Squid Game. What do you think about season 3 in general? One other note that I must mention with season 3 is the return, surprisingly, of the VIP characters from season 1. They're the worst aspect of season 1, and frankly, they're even worse in season 3. They're these, of course, outsider characters that have just despicably written dialogue. I mean, it's just so bad and expository, and it's just really stupid narration. And it's also so clearly ADR, it's so clearly dubbed over. I just don't see what the purpose of that is. I mean, are they supposed to be, Western voices for Korean viewers of the show? Is that the intention? Because the English writing that you're getting, if you're an English speaker and you listen to those characters talk, it is like nails on a chalkboard. I think those scenes are completely unnecessary to the viewer in general. Like they don't add anything to our understanding of the story. We don't need the plot, written on a whiteboard for us like we're in first grade. But that's really what those scenes are doing. So I was really shocked to see them return in season 3 because they were so roundly criticized in season 1. But they came back. And yeah, that was bad. That was my least favorite aspect of season 3 without question. But let me know, what did you think of Squid Game season 3? Where do you want the franchise to go in the future, if anywhere? Let me know. Shout out Lee Jung-jae, tremendous on the show. He has to be quite stoic, frankly, in season 3, especially in the back half. But I think he showed a lot in this series, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of him in the future. And yeah, Squid Game. Let me know what you thought, and I'll see you next time.